Good morning, folks, and welcome to our good morning breakfast. This morning, we're going to have a great breakfast. I think you're going to really enjoy our guests this morning. They're all three of them are very young and energetic, and certainly willing to tell their story. My name is Greg Deroshen. I'm President and CEO of the Cambridge Chamber of Commerce, and the Chamber's vision is to inspire change and lead in fostering greatness in our community and economic prosperity to make Cambridge the most envied city to live, work, play, and of course, build a business. So we appreciate you coming this morning. Also, we have a hashtag for today. So if you're going to follow us along on social media and you're going to be doing some posting, that would be great. And use hashtag CAMBCOC, that's CAMBCOC, as you see on the screen. And we can follow along with you as well. I want to introduce some of our dignitaries that are with us this morning. Our board members, Darren Droulard, who is the chair of our board from Powerline Logistics. Welcome, Darren. And Rena Hawkins from H4 Logistics as well. She is a board member, and I want to thank both of them for showing up this morning as well. Also, we have some political dignitaries from our region, and it's my pleasure to let you know that joining us this morning is also the City of Kitchener Mayor Barry Verbanovic, Region of Waterloo Councillor Helen Jowett, Region of Waterloo Councillor Jim Erb, and of course the Chair of the Region of Waterloo, Karen Redmond. We get lots of great support from our political ambassadors here in the region of Waterloo as well. At this time, many of you know we can't do these programs without great corporate citizenship, and TD and Graham Matthew have been signature sponsors of the breakfast program for many, many, many years. And at this point, I'd like to introduce to you Eric Bergeron of TD to bring greetings on their behalf. Eric.
Thank you, Greg, and good morning, everyone. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Eric Bergeron, and I'm a relationship manager with TD Commercial Bank, covering the Cambridge and Ayr region. On behalf of all of us at TD and our good friends and co-sponsors over at Graham Matthew, we'd like to welcome you to this month's Good Morning Cambridge breakfast, and thank you all for joining us today. I'm sure you're all looking forward to this wonderful panel that the Chamber has put together for us today. So with that being said, I will pass it back to Greg to lead the discussion. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.
Thanks, Eric. Terrific. We appreciate it very much. Your support is always so generous and so welcomed. I want to also give some support to our supporting sponsorships. Energy Plus, of course, we can't be doing programs like this without Energy Plus. They're always there for us, supporting our programming as well. HeartZap, safety training and equipment. HeartZap is always with us. They're here all the time just in case I need a little zap to get me going again, but HeartZap is always there protecting you and I in our workplace. Also, we have a new one that has come on in the last 6 or 8 months, Inner Sea Initiatives, Inc. This is a really interesting organization. They do culture transformation, leadership development, and they have a team development program that is second to none. So if you've got some team building you want to do, go to initiatives.innerseed.com and have a look at their program. I think you would find it very interesting. Also, H4 Logistics. Wow, boy, have we needed logistics companies any more than we have through the last 2 years. We certainly appreciate everything our logistics providers have done, and our truck drivers and our transportation companies have done. We can't do without them. So thank you, H4 Logistics, for your contribution to it as well. And JD Development Group Corporation. JD Development Group is always here supporting us as well. We appreciate it. They're doing a wonderful development right down here on Hespeler Road. JD is always supportive of our program and building a better community around us as well. Now it gives me pleasure to introduce our guests this morning. And first of all, I'm going to introduce Jeremy. Jeremy Hedges is a Laurier graduate. He is the founder and president of Inksmith and the Canadian Shield, a Kitchener-based company that has grown to become one of the largest producers of personal protective equipment in Canada, a great young entrepreneur with his head squarely on his shoulders. Please welcome Jeremy Hedges. Jeremy. Great to see you this morning, and thanks very much for coming on.
Thanks so much for having me on, Greg.
Okay, and now I'm going to introduce to you Jody Palubiski, the CEO and partner of the Charcoal Group of Restaurants. This is going to be very interesting to talk to Jody because of the size and scope of his organization. And of course, he's in the hospitality industry, and we always know what happened through the last 2 years in hospitality. But Jody's been in the business for 35 years, currently leads a team of 1,000 incredible hospitality professionals, oversees and drives all facets of the company growth and development. Jody's vision is present in all details of each restaurant's decor, cuisine, branding, systems, service style, and culture. The Charcoal Group was recognized in 2019 by the as Independent Restaurateur of the Year for Canada at the Food Service and Hospitality's annual Pinnacle Awards. Welcome, Jody Palubiski.
Thanks for having me, Greg.
Oh, it's great to have you. And then finally, my friend, Kristen Danson. She's the owner, controller, managing partner of Swift Components, as well as Mito Graphics. And since 1991, she's been 1999, she's been there. I made a mistake on that 91 thing, but by 2012, she had become a managing partner and owner. Swift manufactures thermal and acoustic insulators for the automotive, recreation vehicle, off-road markets in Canada, US, Mexico, and recently started exporting to Finland as well. Mito Graphics provides solutions to clients in two divisions: graphics for industry, providing clients in the manufacturing sector with nameplates, control panel overlays, labels, and other industrial graphic solutions, and signage and displays, including the design, manufacture, and installation of interior and exterior signs for clients in retail and commercial sector. Kristen Danson is also a board member of the Cambridge Chamber of Commerce. Welcome, Kristen.
Thank you, Greg. Happy to be here.
I guess not only are you a board member, but actually we'll let everybody know now that as of June the 1st, you will actually be the chair of the chamber in Cambridge for the next 2 years. So we're excited. Yes, absolutely. We're excited to have Kristen. I always like to surround myself with young people. That's why I've got all three of you. And Jody, I'm going to keep you in that young thing anyway.
I was trying how you were going to reconcile the young and the 35 years in the industry, but that's great. I appreciate it.
Well, you were like 8 when you started, right? So, you know, it's like everybody else.
I will take
Recently,
that.
I heard on the radio that Greg turned 97 this month. So to be young to him is kind of, you know, not too difficult.
You're all young. Let's face it. We all know who the oldest one in the room here is. But anyway, but I appreciate everything that you folks have done. Not just, you know, you've always been keen to our concerns throughout. We've called on each one of you in many occasions to come on our radio show. Ian McLean and I have a radio show, Business to Business, on Sundays. You've all come on the radio show through the last 2 years to give us kind of an update as to what's going on. And we appreciate every ounce of your time, but especially today to talk about, you know, the past 2 years, but then the moving forward as well. So I want to give each one of you an opportunity to, you know, I think what's really interesting when I talk to business people is I ask them the question, well, what happened back in March of 2020 when Doug Ford stood at the microphone and said, okay, that's it. Everybody out of the pool. You're going home. You're locking down. You're staying home. You three are leaders of your organization, and you all had to make nearly split second decisions. What are you going to tell your people? How are you going to react to this? How are you going to keep the continuity of business alive within your organization? Because I don't think, even though a couple of you, like Jeremy and Kristen, you're essential services, you could continue to operate, but you didn't know whether you really should or could, or how you do that in the environment that we're at. So I want to give you, first of all, an opportunity, each of you, to talk a little bit about your business, and then talk about that initial reaction and how you led your team. So let's start with Kristen. Go ahead, Kristen.
Thanks, Greg. The initial reaction from our team, and I guess for baseline, we manufacture thermal and acoustic insulators at Swift, and that means people working shoulder to shoulder in work cells. So it's not something where you're one person sitting in an office, or one person standing in isolation in a line. We run cells that may have 2, 3, 4 people working together side by side. So it's a little different that, when Doug Ford got up and said people should work from home if they could, I had people come in and say, Doug Ford said I should work from home. And I said, I think that's a fantastic idea. Let me know how we're going to fit the 200-ton press into your home, and we'll absolutely set that up for you. So there was a little bit of a reconciliation that wasn't for everyone. And then the reality that they were talking about on TV wasn't what was going to happen for folks that work in manufacturing. And I think that was hard for people in our sector to swallow. Having said that, we really took it as a line in the sand. We didn't know what an essential business was in the start. It took a bit for that to shake out. So they were saying essential business can stay open. And we're saying, well, did we qualify as that? Is automotive going to keep going? Is Toyota going to shut down? And we really weren't sure where that would leave us. So we did a lot of work on that. And because a lot of our product is exported, it was a concern to us, if Ontario shut down and Michigan didn't, what did that mean for our customers? And what did that mean for our ability to fill contracts where potentially we were liable if a line down there shut down for even an hour? And where would that put us? So that was our initial concern. But once we figured out we could keep running, our main priority was to talk to our team and say, there's a line in the sand here. We're going to keep going, but we understand that's not going to work for everybody. If you have young kids at home and you need to be there, be there. Your job will be here when you're able to be back. And we understand that being open in this capacity isn't for everyone. Oh my goodness, I'm so sorry. I don't know how to turn that off. The reality of home. That will stop in a minute. So we did keep going. And we did keep our team with us as we were able. The people that couldn't stayed home, and we replaced them in the short term with people to fill their spot. But the reality is that everyone was there by choice. Nobody had to be at work at that point. They were making a decision on what was best for their family and their health, and that was different for everybody. The main thing that we were concerned about was providing a job for folks that needed it. So that the reality was some people needed that paycheck and some people need to be there for other reasons. And we wanted to be there for them. And give people the space to not be there that didn't. One of the things that is interesting is, did we think we'd still be here 2 years from now? I actually did, because one of the first things I did was Google how long's a pandemic, and it actually says 2 years. And I thought, okay, so we're going to be doing something like this for 2 years. So it's surprising to me now that it's literally March 2022, 2 years to the day, and now apparently the pandemic is over. We're getting rid of our masks. I'm not sure I buy into that completely, but it's interesting to me that 2 years later, this is where we're at. So yeah, it's been an interesting process for us in our business, and a real evolution of how we deal with our team members and our customers and our suppliers. And I wouldn't trade it in one way, because I think things are a lot more open, honest, and personal now than they were. And I appreciate some of that, but definitely the hardship has been felt on many levels.
Yeah. Jody, you're quite a different industry from a manufacturing, obviously not essential. You're a restaurant, hospitality. There had to be a few beads of sweat coming down from the forehead thinking, oh my gosh, are you kidding me? And now, initially we thought it was going to be a couple of weeks, but a couple of weeks in your business might as well be a couple of months. Like, it's, especially at this time of year when you're trying to heat things up again and get back at it.
Right. Well, it's interesting even to talk about essential. I think now what we do is probably more essential than ever before, just because now, when I say that, I mean, there's so much divisiveness between family, friends, communities. We need places to bring people back together, and we need to do that as fast as possible. There have been so many individuals who have passed on, milestones missed, graduations. People are feeling, obviously, the mental health issues. We need to get people back together. And I think restaurants and meeting places in general are truly truly more essential. I believe that's the service we do for the communities that we serve. But when I look back 2 years ago, I think Kristen, I probably Googled the 1919 pandemic and it said 2 years. And I thought, surely with all the advancements, we're not going to be sitting in this 2 years later. Now that we can all communicate and boy, we're going to do this together. We're all going to be on the same page. Well, that didn't work out so well. But I think when I think back to that, and I don't like to think back to that very much, but you know, March 17th was the day that that the premier came out and made that announcement. If you backed it up to the Thursday before that, that was a Tuesday morning. The Thursday before that, we had actually just opened the newest beer town in Guelph at that point. And, you know, it was a very bizarre thing because we had opened up maybe 4 or 5 days and it was busy. It was, you know, shoulder to shoulder, elbow to elbow. It was jam packed. And here we are on the news reading about this coming pandemic. And at one point I grabbed the chef and I said, does this look like a pandemic? This is very strange. I'm not sure how to feel. I'm not sure if I should feel really, really positive about this or if I should feel, you know, nervous about this. And I remember on that Thursday night, I went home and again, it was our first week and I got home around 8 o'clock. And that's the day that the American president was making his announcement. He did the primetime speech about closing down the air from Europe. I was watching picture in picture waiting for the basketball game to start. And that was the moment that the NBA suspended their play. And then I remember looking and 10 minutes later, it said Tom Hanks had coronavirus. And you're like, oh my God, not Tom Hanks. You know, it was like the dominoes were falling. And I think that Thursday night was the first time I thought, oh boy, this thing's for real. What's going on here? And then probably like many people here throughout the weekend, I was getting so many phone calls and emails, people that, you know, purportedly knew what was, you know, in the mind of the various levels of government saying Doug Ford's going to shut this thing down Monday. And my mother works for, you know, Public Health Ontario. My dad is at the OPP. Someone's working for the LCBO. And I was getting all these calls saying Monday morning they're shutting it down. So our team all weekend, we rallied on what does that look like? And you know, for us, it was flatten the curve. Well, if we kind of do a circuit breaker, everyone stays home, it's 3 weeks. And so we were kind of thinking somewhere between 2 and 4 weeks, what does that look like? That was our initial assumption. But we were, I think the last phone call with my team was maybe 3 a.m. Monday morning. We were going all weekend creating checklists for the various restaurants. And this is the way you start to scale these things down. This is the way you go into a lockdown. You know, I have to, you know, up my security systems and cancel this service and this service, you know, all the things. I mean, there was 100 things for every restaurant that we would have to do. And we started writing communications to the guests and to the team members. And we started, you know, discussing what that might look like. And then on the Monday, we gathered around at the head office, had the TV on, and the premier came in, and it was kind of a nothing burger, if you remember. He just said, boy, we have to be diligent. And there was nothing. And he kind of went off. We all looked at each other and they said, what do you want to do? And we said, I think we need to close. Our staff were nervous. Our staff were afraid. We didn't know how to wrap our heads around what was happening. And so preemptively, without any real decision on behalf of any level of government, we at 2 o'clock made the announcement we were going to be closing until further notice. And then by the next day is when the premier kind of came out. And from a business standpoint, we went into immediate action at that point and started to say, okay, what does this look like? We did a deep dive on cash flows. We kept all of our managers working. We had roughly 85 managers. And we said, okay, let's keep everybody on board. Let's keep them, and we'll, you know, again, decommission these businesses, and let's focus on some training pieces and how we take care of the team members that are going to have to be furloughed, and trying to get, you know, by closing one day early, we thought, boy, can we get our team to the front of the line with Service Canada and send out all the details we can on how to create, you know, their portals. And at that point, that was before, obviously, there was any sort of CERB, or there was nothing announced at that point. We didn't know if there were subsidies coming or anything along those lines. So we spent that first week trying to make sure everyone was taken care of, trying to understand where cash flows for the business were. And then we started to call every landlord and say, listen, you know, here's the way we want to. It was interesting because we jumped on, you know, we came up with a system where we said to the landlords, hey, we're going to pay you this amount right now, this amount over the next period of time. We're going to accrue this portion And then as soon as we get out of it, we'll cap up our rent. You'll get paid 100%. Don't worry about it. And the landlords were so paranoid. They went, yeah, that sounds great. Just put it on an email. Send it. We'll take care of it. That's right. Hang up the phone, because they were just worried about the people that weren't going to pay anything at that point. And so we just started calling every single vendor, we said, you're going to all get paid. It's just, this is the program we have in place. And, the team was amazing about handling it. I kind of think at that point, if someone had said it was 2 years to me, I'm not sure you would have handled it with the same kind of approach. In a lot of ways, it was better to think 2 or 3 weeks at a time and just try and get your head around the next several obstacles and then see what's on the other side of it. But I have to say, I think there's been 4 times when we've been locked down. We did take it hard. Our team took it incredibly hard. Our team kind of, it's been largely reported on how hospitality people were, they weren't treated really well by a lot of levels of government, and they seem to have been forgotten. There were times where, we had been, furloughed for a month, and then they would lock things down for, and 4 weeks after that lockdown, the premier would make a speech and say, 4 weeks ago, I asked you to lock down. And we'd be like, no, it was 8 weeks for us, and it almost seemed like we were that kind of sub nation that nobody was thinking about at that time. And trying to keep everybody's spirits up and keep everybody together was really important. Lots of communication, lots of emails, lots of, trying to do fun things, trying to get everybody cooking the same dish on a Friday night and sharing their pictures. And so it was a real, I think it gave us a lot of opportunities to think about a lot of things, value the team, how we communicated, etc. But our communities, every time we had a chance to reopen, came out and supported us on day one in a big way. And I was just saying to the panel here before we went on that March again has been, since we've reopened at full capacity, we've never experienced a March like this. We've been tremendously busy. We've received tremendous support from our communities, and we couldn't thank them enough.
That is such good news. And I wonder, your comment about, you needed to think about it a few weeks at a time, otherwise you really sincere panic would come in. But you almost wonder if the science behind the messaging was that reason. Hey, we don't want people jumping off the top of buildings here. We want to make sure that they know everybody's trying to work together to make things better. So let's not, because I'm quite sure people in the science community knew, well, both of you knew. You Googled the 1919 pandemic. How long does it last? Well, 2 years. Kristen saying, yeah, well, okay, we'll figure that out. Jody saying, hey, technology brought us a long way. That'll be 2 weeks. It didn't quite work out that way.
Not quite.
Jeremy, you've got an interesting story as well, but I want more importantly, because you had a fairly young business, very successful young business, but nonetheless, you had to kind of look around and say, oh my gosh, what the heck's going on?
Yeah, I mean, we'd been working in education for about 4 years at that point, and not only had the provincial announcements gone out, but we were getting letters from all the school boards that they were working from home or they were off. So we really didn't know what our future looked like. Our staff were all sent home. We had to shut down essentially, and we were working from home. But that was something that was totally new to us. We were a team of 10 at the time, so very, very tight group. I kind of saw it coming. So when they announced it and we did go into lockdown, there was a bit of like vindication with my team in a way, because I was that like tinfoil hat guy that was like, go shop, buy, 3 weeks of groceries. I was already getting my parents to stay home. So I saw it coming because we had so many, contacts in China, and we had just come from this conference where some of our friends were going back to Hong Kong and they were talking about how bad it was over there. So I had been trying to wrap my head around what we were going to do. And I couldn't anticipate what was going to happen with school boards or when kids were going to go back to the classroom. And, like Kristen and Jody, I didn't know if this was going to be 2 or 3 weeks or if this was going to be a year. I'd done all the reading on the Spanish flu and was thinking, okay, either we're going to solve this thing quickly because, modern technology, modern medicine, and hopefully, better communication means that we're all going to stay put and it'll go away quickly. But unfortunately, obviously that didn't happen. And then we were in this interesting place where, we had all of this fabrication equipment on hand. And I think maybe this is a topic for later, but that kind of sprouted this entire new organization with the Canadian Shield, and we went through this really crazy growth in a very, very short period of time. I mean, we went from a team of 10 to a team of 100 in like 30 days, and on and on and on and on from there. So it was it's hard to wrap my head around those first couple of months, and it's strange now that it's been 2 years. I get the official, inception of the Canadian Shield was March 20th. So we're 4 days past the 2-year anniversary, which yeah, it's pretty crazy. Proud of what the team's been able to accomplish in this time, and happy that we were able to help. But yeah, I'm hoping that this is kind of the last kick at it. I was telling Greg earlier that we had a positive case this morning, so it's still here. Be safe out there, but yeah, wild journey.
Well, and as you might say, wear your mask, and
Yeah.
and buy it from the Canadian Shield and wear your mask. That's the important part. But Jeremy, you had a team of 10 young folks, right? There's 10 of you, fairly young, innovative, techie. Yeah, maybe easy to transition to say, yeah, we can work from home. The problem was your business wasn't focused at home. Your business was focused in the classroom and with educators and things like that. We
were a hardware business. We were
yeah.
3D printers, laser cutters, like physical products that we were putting into classrooms. So
yeah,
we honestly, our future was very much in limbo. We didn't know if we were going to be able to make it through the lockdowns. Like if it was going to be a quarter, we didn't have the cash flow at that time that we were going to be able to stick around, and we didn't know anything about Serve or any of that. I wish I could tell you that I had the planfulness to say I'm going to stand up a PPE business, and that was how we were going to get our way through. That actually was an accident for us. We had a local doctor come say that Waterloo Region was short 10,000 face shields, and we had all these laser cutters and 3D printers. We made a call to the community, and that's what really started it. We had like school boards printing out, the headbands for face shields, and we were assembling them and donating them. But and I think similar to Jody, we were kind of thinking 2 and 3 weeks at a time at that point. We were going to make these 10,000 shields and go. Then Ontario Health got a hold of us and said, well, it's not just Waterloo Region, the whole province is out. Like we're short 500,000 face shields. Can you guys help us? And at that point, it was like, okay, get the team together. We made the call. We're going to go for it. And, we bought a bunch of equipment with the cash we had on hand and started making, at that time, like 10,000 shields a day seemed like a lot. And eventually we scaled up to as many as 200,000 and opened a 50,000 square foot facility here in North Waterloo. So in total, we made about 16 million shields in 5 months. And since then, we have not made shields. So we actually stopped making face shields in September of 2020, and then have gone through subsequent pivots through the pandemic. But yeah, it was a pretty incredible time. And you know what? I think in general, these last few years has really been hard for everybody. But it seems like there's just so much going on all at the same time. I mean, especially like we're 3 months into 2022, and it is quite a crazy start. So.
I think what a lot of people don't understand, and most entrepreneurs do, but there might be some folks on the call who aren't necessarily the owner of a business or responsible for hundreds or maybe thousands of people, as in Jody's case. But the understanding that you have to dig so deep when those kinds of things happen, when you're the leader of the organization. I think a lot of people don't understand that. Jody, you're responsible for 1,000 families. In essence, right? That's an incredible burden to have on someone's shoulders, given the fact, you know what today's going to be like, but you have no idea what tomorrow's going to be like. And all of a sudden that responsibility for people and an organization really comes home to roost, and you start to learn things from that, and your organization does. So looking now, forward, what is going to be the new normal for your business operations? Or is it just are we going to go back to somebody said to me the other day, Greg, don't worry about it. Yeah, some people aren't taking their masks off now, but eventually everybody will burn their masks and throw them away. I'm not so sure that that's correct. But your businesses have been changed over the last 24 months. your operations, your people, your whole concept around it. Is there a new normal you can see your operation, or do you eventually think you'll get back to the old ways? Jody, why don't you start with us first?
Well, I think for us, it's cemented the things that we think are important that we provide. And so I think that there are a lot of people who have pivoted or will forever change. I think that before we went into the pandemic, there was certainly a trend away from full serve dining. So, people are living busier lives. They're doing skip the dishes. They're doing Uber Eats. They're doing home meal replacements from grocery stores. And so we've seen that continue to, but every time that trend has continued where full serve dining, at one point was 53% of the total food service spend in Canada. And then it was down to, it was losing about 1% a year. And I think that probably jolted ahead pretty far over the last 2 years. To me, that doesn't mean that there's still not a place for a place for people to come together and connect and have all those things. So every time we reopened, we doubled down on those things that we've had. So we still have not done skip the dishes. We have not done Uber Eats because we believe that the connection opportunity is far greater than simply feeding you. And so we've looked around the marketplace. We've seen a lot of people change. We think a lot of businesses will change forever. We think that you're going to see a lot more QSR businesses, et cetera. But I'll tell you, over the last 5 years, as that number has decreased, we've gotten busier and busier and busier. And so if that's relevant to the number of businesses that are out there, or whether or not, people have just changed the way they're doing it, and there's still a certain segment of the population that's looking for that kind of experience, I'm not completely sure, but it served us very well. I actually just came back from Chicago in the last 3 days. And it's interesting to see how they've bounced back in many, many ways as well. Even previous to this Monday, if you traveled, down to the U.S. anywhere, anywhere you went, it felt very odd the first day that you didn't need to have a mask on. And some people still put it on, some people didn't. I went with my family to New York about a month ago, and half of us wore masks the first day, the other half didn't want to. But by 6 o'clock the first day, nobody had a mask on. And by the second day, it was like, oh yeah, remember, it still feels a little bit weird. And by the third day, when we come home, you go into a gas station, oh yeah, I need a mask. So I think that we're going to revert back fairly quickly. That said, I think that if there was a negative stigma about wearing a mask, if someone's not feeling ill or showing any, even beyond COVID, I don't think it would be taboo to put a mask on or keep them close and see them as just a preventative opportunity going forward. So I think they're going to be more prevalent in our community than before, but I do think there's going to be an established new norm that's not that far off of where we came from. And I think that, we need to get people back together. And I can't say that enough, and I've said it many times already, but my biggest fear is the mental health elements that have come from this and come from isolation and come from quarantine and come from the fear and the constant media and divisiveness. And we've had families who have said, and we probably all know people like this. We've had families where it said that if part of the family's not vaccinated, they can't come to Christmas dinner. I actually know somebody that said, because you are vaccinated, you can't come to Christmas dinner. And so there's been those types of things. We just need to get past this, because it's been all so politicized and so stigmatized one way or the other that, healing those wounds and those chasms is infinitely important in the next year.
I talked to somebody that was over in China and right around the time that SARS happened, and they, that's when, you couldn't go anywhere in China without seeing people wearing masks at that point. And you know what, like now we see still, if you go over to China, you'll see the vast majority of people walking around, getting on a subway or whatever, are wearing a mask. And, so it's become, some people will actually say it's a fashion statement, because they get pretty, grand with their masks at times. But I think you're exactly right. I think there will be no, you won't even recognize it. Somebody's got a mask or doesn't have a mask. I think it'll become, oh, well, that's just the way it is. I used to say, can you imagine that there was a time where if you ever walked into a bank with a mask on, like they'd the police cars would gather around. Right now, it's okay. You can walk in with a mask on. It's crazy, but things will change. And I think you're exactly right. And I'm grateful to hear that people are starting to go out and dine. You know, that's not the only way you can support restaurants and hospitality organizations, but it is a better experience. You know, it is about the experience of dining out and sharing fellowship with other people. And I think it's so important because that's the mental health aspect. Kristen, how about you? What is there a new normal to your operations, or do you think it's going to be the same old, same old?
There's definitely a new normal. From a management side, I guess as a business owner, I was always cautious and analytical, but having seen what can happen now, I'm a little more prepared, I think. I think if you'd said that something could happen where the government would shut us all down, or, you know, just thinking of the cash flow and the infrastructure, you know, to Jody's point about what happens if you have to do something like that. Like, we're a 24-hour operation. So for us as well, it's, you know, the contingency planning for things like that is a pretty major ordeal. So we have a lot more preparation in place now. And from a cash flow perspective, I'm more prepared for disruptions now than I was, because I was naive thinking, well, if things are good, that, you know, I mean, we were prepared, you know, for blips, but not for, you know, to the hospitality industry's point, for being shut down for months on end. So we've looked at that a lot more, just in terms of what do we need to do for our future stability. And then from a team perspective, it used to be a badge of honor in our industry to say, I haven't taken a sick day in 6 months, you know, and I came to work and I fought through with a cold, and, you know, and you were the weak one if you didn't do that, right? Oh, you know, Sue's home with a cold, right? You kind of roll your eyes. But now I think that's in the past. I think now there's sort of an acceptance and an encouragement. Take care of your body, take care of your mind, take care of yourself. And I don't think that's going away, because you can't, right? Like, you can't say we should do those things and then next week say, well, now, you know, now your body doesn't matter anymore, because it does. So I think that it's going to take a little bit for policies to kind of catch up with what that looks like, but for sure, more acceptance and encouragement. On the mental health side, we implemented a mental health package through Homewood Health. It's an amazing program. If you don't have it, it's worth looking into. Our team has benefited from it. I think before, we may have just done it and sent an email at once. Now it's more of an ongoing discussion of encouraging and sending out new information that they have as it becomes available, and kind of making that something that we talk about regularly. And we've had more people say they need a mental health day off. And, you know, that, you know, 3 years ago in our industry anyways, you know, people wouldn't have been that open with us, or I think themselves, about needing that space. So that's new, and I embrace it and I encourage it. And I try to honor it myself as well, and be open with my team, so that it's clear that, you know, we all need to take care of ourselves, myself included. And previously I would never have, again, been that open with the team at work. So that's definitely new, and I'm still learning that from my side.
You know, the mental health issue is, Jody brought it up as well. I think it's driven a lot of the anxiety and anger, and, you know, it's fueled a lot of that, because people, you know, they get mad and they get, you know, it affects you psychologically, and then people start getting angry and mad, and because that's the only way they can express the frustrations that they feel inside. And I think, you know, that's the next pandemic, right? The next pandemic is, how do we deal with the mental health issues of it? That and workforce planning, but we'll get into that as well at some point.
That's the other new normal, is not enough workers and supply chains in us, right? Hopefully that's not a new normal. It's going to stay.
Yeah. Hopefully that's not a normal.
Yeah, hopefully not.
It's Jeremy, how about you? Is there a new normal? Obviously there is a little bit, because you now have a totally different entity to operate with as well. But is there a new normal, or is it just going to get back to the same old?
You know, on the education technology side of our business, Inksmith, there definitely is. You know, you can kind of think of that, like, we have software developers, we have mechanical engineers, like there's folks that can work from home, and now that's become an expectation. So, you know, even from a competitiveness perspective, when we're recruiting, people are looking for flexible work, and that was really never the case before. It was kind of an afterthought, at least for me and our team. You know, we're not a strict software development company, so I think that'll be a big change, as a lot of tech companies are going to be expected to be much more flexible. And, you know, there's a much different you know, management strategy when you have employees that are working from home, particularly if they are fully work from home. Right now, we've tried to implement a hybrid, because we're still a small enough team that I think it's nice to have that human connection, but that's going to be interesting for us to manage and grow with. We've won a few grants on the education side of the business, so we're running some national coding and STEM programs with a couple of other local organizations. So Launch Waterloo, we won a Can Code grant with them, and that'll see us in 50 cities across the country teaching coding and robotics. So we're gonna have to grow the team a lot, and that new growth is probably going to come with a bunch of people that are either hybrid or remote, and I think that's going to be an interesting new chapter for us. And like Jody and Kristen, there's definitely a demand for mental health resources. So we've added a bunch of riders to our benefit programs. We've created like dedicated mental health days. So there's things that you're thinking about now that weren't necessarily front and center in the past. And I guess too, as we grow, there's some changes that come with that. And then inflation is obviously driving like quite a hike as well, right? What used to be a living wage or what used to be affordable just isn't anymore. And if you want to be competitive and get good staff, you've got to pay more. And we're seeing that with the people that we have, and we're seeing that with the positions we're recruiting for. Wages are going to go up pretty significantly, I think, to match inflation. So yeah, there's lots changing. We still have kept a mask mandate. I mean, we're the mask company, so I think we can afford to be a little bit on the cautious side for now. Knock on wood, things start to normalize, but supply chain issues too just seem constant. I mean, right now, the last I checked, Shenzhen was locked down again, and that's 90% of the world's electronics are made in that city in China. So that is a pretty major disruption for our ed tech business, where all of the components are probably made in that city in one form or another. So it'll be interesting to see how some of this levels out, and obviously with the Ukraine crisis and trade disputes, who knows what's going to happen over the next little while. We're just going to continue to be flexible and find our way.
Yeah, I think we can all conclude that we're probably a lot smarter in dealing with what will become new normal changes. We can handle that stuff. We've gone through probably the most traumatic instance that we would have ever thought. I was thinking about it this morning, that nobody could have ever foreseen what this could do. We never thought, we always knew, we were always told, oh, it's not if a pandemic comes, it's when, but we really didn't understand what that would look like. And I think to Jody's point earlier, yeah, we kind of figured, hey, technology's on our side, for crying out loud, yeah, it'll be a little blip. And like Kristen said, in business, if you're in business, you're all used to the ups and downs. You kind of plan for that. You understand that. You don't panic about it, but nobody gets used to the bottom falling out of something. And that's really the difficult thing to understand. But what makes an entrepreneur, separates and makes great entrepreneurs. Jody in the hospitality business, in the middle of the pandemic, decides, well, this is a really good time to open a brand new restaurant. Like I want to tell you, most people, three, exactly. Well, one in downtown Toronto, I think.
Barrie. Yeah, we did the Toronto, Barrie, and Guelph, but most of those things take 2 years. So some people were saying, why would you do this in the middle of the pandemic? And say, well, I didn't see the pandemic coming 2 years ago when we started this project and applied for permits. And it's just, you keep on trucking and deal with things, and you have to iterate and evolve and figure out what that looks like, right?
Yeah. And I think that's what I admired about it. A lot of people said, actually, we had you on the radio talking about, I think was it right after or just before? I think it was just before the opening of Beer Town in Toronto. And we had you on the radio. We were talking about that. And I had a couple of people email me after and say, could you ask Jody what he was thinking when he was going to, in the middle of a pandemic? And I said, well, you know what? Most of these things are, when you got a company the size of the Charcoal Group, you're planning 5 and 10 years out in a lot of cases. So these things were kind of chugging along, and there'd been a lot of investments made up to that point. So you kind of know there's going to be a light at the end of the tunnel. So let's do it now, and then we'll be prepared. But let's speak to the success of those. And I know it was going to be challenging, because literally you opened them, but they weren't open. They were closed. So how has it gone, and how happy are you with the move to have done that during the pandemic?
Yeah, I think it was years in the making. Yeah, how happy was I? I can't really look back in that fashion. I think they've all surpassed any expectation that we would have had given the parameters that were placed on us. And so we're thrilled with the way Guelph has gone. We're thrilled with the way Barrie's gone. Downtown Toronto was the geographic area that was locked down longer than any other area on the planet. And so, boy, you know, they have a lot of work to do. I would say we opened in August. We got up and running by September. I think we were going real strong for the first 2-3 months, and then another lockdown. And then when we reopened this time, the Scotiabank was not allowed to reopen, and so it's been this kind of ups and downs. Overall, we've done better than you would think. It's still probably the slowest to bounce back. But the last couple of weeks have been tremendous, and now that we know baseball's coming back, and Scotiabank is allowed 100% capacity. I believe City Hall in Toronto was welcoming workers back to work and not at home any longer as of this week and next. Banks are starting to come back as of April. And so we're really, really optimistic. I was actually with another company 20 years ago, and we opened a restaurant 1 month before SARS hit Toronto. And you know, SARS was, you know, Toronto was the epicenter, so in a lot of ways that was worse, but it was not nearly as long-lived. But it had lasting effects because Toronto was the epicenter. Folks were looking at it, and they canceled conferences for 2-3 years to come because they didn't know where it was going to go and what was going to happen. So there was a hangover in Toronto for, it certainly wasn't just a few months. But many years later, you look back on that investment and said, you know, we would do that all over again. It was a great business. And so that's the way we feel about Toronto right now. We're thrilled with it. We're happy. We think we're in the right place. We've, you know, we've probably exposed ourselves to a lot more landlords now, and I would rank it as a strong success for us. We're actually in the midst of building in Etobicoke right now, Newmarket, and London as well. So that's in the next year and a bit. So we've continued to grow, and we're excited.
See, that's entrepreneurship, folks. It's looking forward, you know, trying to clear the clutter and the smoke and all the other things out of your sight line, because the path, you know, Simon Sinek talks about it a lot. It's the infinite game, right? The game's going to go on whether you folks are at the helm or not. The game needs to continue, and you need to prepare and put the runway down so that the successors can continue to build the organization, because that's what business is all about. Continually moving forward, progressing, changing, developing, and grooming. And I think that's what a testament to entrepreneurship, Jody, that you bring in saying, you know, in spite of the challenges that hospitality has faced, my goal and my objective is to continue to grow the company, to make it bigger, better, and stronger, create more opportunity for people. And you know, my goodness, there are a lot of people that would think you're crazy, but at the end of the day, I think you prove them all wrong, and we're so thankful to have you certainly in our region doing that. But Jeremy, another thing, you know, you touched on it a little bit before. You know, you have this brilliant organization focused on educators instilling qualities like empathy and core competencies like design thinking and digital skills in their students. It's ed tech. It's like, you know, really trying to change the world in essence with technology, and you know, very courageous, but because the education field doesn't like to change that quickly. You know, and then all of a sudden this happens, and you pivot and really change completely different. Like your masks and shields have nothing to do with the education field. So what was the impetus for that? How did, you know, I understand how it kind of came forward, but to actually create another company is pretty monumental.
Yeah, you know, I think in the moment it felt like we didn't really have much of a choice in the matter. It was like, if we don't do this, then who will? And in some ways, it was kind of like what we teach in practice, right? Like we teach design thinking, and we just creatively solved a problem and kept solving bigger and bigger ones, and just applied that thinking every day to how we set up our manufacturing facility, how we kept people safe, because that obviously was a challenge at that point too. Like when you're going from 10 to 100 people in a very short period of time and trying not to have a massive COVID outbreak that shuts the thing down, like we had to make up all of our own rules before these rules were published by public health. We had our like social distance tape on the floor, and we made makeshift masks. We had people sewing in the back to make cloth masks for the team. Yeah, I mean, it really felt like we were part of the effort. We wanted to pitch in some way, and it was obvious that the need was monumental. I think had I known when Neil, that doctor, reached out that we needed to make like 16 million face shields, I don't know that we would have stepped up to that tower. Like that just would have seemed too large a hill to climb. But you know what, 10,000 was big enough that we were like, okay, we can do this. It's going to be a stretch and we'll figure it out. And then it kind of just went through this sequential course of the number kept growing, and then we had to reimagine and reevaluate how we would actually do that. Like we went from laser cutting and 3D printing to like die presses. So they're like, think of them like 2-ton cookie cutters. You hit a button on each side and they punch through plastic. So we went from being able to do like one every 45 seconds on a laser to being able to punch 10 out on these cookie cutters, and they were really loud and god awful. And a lot of Red Bull and energy drinks and staying up all night to make this happen. But we eventually progressed to these traveling head presses and so on. So we bought these big machines that are the size of this room that could punch 60 times a minute through 5 sheets of plastic. And then it was figuring out how we could process that on the downstream. So it was just this crazy iterative rush, and it happened very, very quickly. And I think we had a can-do attitude, and we felt like we were helping, and that was important. Like it was an important part of the effort to keep healthcare workers safe, a way for us to do our part. And it was a pretty incredible journey. And now it's such a good proof case of why we teach what we teach in classrooms. If we're teaching design thinking and all of these critical coding and robotic skills, like imagine what these future generations are going to grow up and do. And a few weeks ago, maybe longer, this year kind of blurs for me, but the Ontario government finally brought coding into the science curriculum. And now coding is layered through science and math. So education is going to change. It will be slow. There's going to be lots of teacher training involved, but I think what kids learn today will be really powerful, because our economies are going to change. There's going to be revolutions, and I think every important sector, from food to manufacturing to energy. So it's important to me and to our team to be a part of that and to help build that curriculum and build the skills, because in some ways we kind of we layer onto that curriculum. Like we develop a lot of content that teaches things like climate change issues in the context of technology solutions. So kids might learn about deforestation and then build an automated tree planter that drops a seed every 10 centimeters. And the kids will start programming these things as early as grade 3. And someday we're hoping that we can start doing, like logic training, if you will, for kind of K to 3. It would be very like physical computing. But anyway, it's been a powerful journey for all of us, and hopefully leads to even more for us in education. And who knows where it goes with the Canadian Shield going forward. Obviously lots of uncertainty in that space, but we've ridden the wave so far, and we'll keep going.
Oh, well, we're going to work really, really hard to make sure that the Canadian Shield sticks around, because, fighting Health Canada and all the regulations and procurement measures and things like that. I can remember both Justin Trudeau and Doug Ford stood at a microphone and said, we need to have a domestic supply of PPE. And then, Jeremy Hedges steps up with the Canadian Shield, and Steve Mai steps up with Eclipse Automation, and then can't get into the procurement wheel of government in Canada. So, but we need to get that fixed. And I know you and Steve are working closely together on that to make that happen too. And we're right there with you all the way. So it's exciting. Kristen, you know, a week or two after, and I think about the same time as Jeremy stood up the Canadian Shield after the announcement, you actually dropped off what I think it's an intubation box at Cambridge Memorial Hospital for them to demo and try. You know, you were looking at ways, in spite of the fact that you needed to make sure that you kept the supply chain moving from the companies that you provide parts for. You also felt compelled that you could do something as well to help. Talk about that a little bit and tell us how important it was to you to be able to participate and do what you could to help out.
It was interesting. We're makers at heart on our team. My partners and I we just love making stuff. And I think there was so much grassroots manufacturing happening at that point. We also, you know, we have a belt fed die cutter and it was up and running. I think we did 7 million face shields, and it's just the fun maker part of it. And the fact that you got to kind of engineer something and get up and running quick and sell it. That's like a dream come true for people that like making stuff. And for us, it was just, I mean, fun's the wrong word. It's not a fun thing for anyone to need to be intubated. We, you know, not making it sound that way, but for us to have a challenge to go and work with some of our suppliers on and use some of our machines here. In automotive, you can go for, you know, 5-10 years making the same part every single day on the same line with the same equipment. So just to have the opportunity to try something different, make something different, and, you know, feel like you're helping in some way. It was a neat opportunity. And it was something to take your mind off of the stress and the stuff that was happening in the world that was out of our control.
Yeah. I remember getting that call from you and saying, oh, hey, Greg, do you think Patrick Gaskin and Cambridge Memorial? Yeah. Here's Patrick's email. And of course, at that point, as all of you will know, hospital administrators were answering every call from business, you know, like, I can't believe how business and healthcare came together throughout the pandemic. Like, it's just unbelievable. Even hospitality, for that matter, where companies were saying, let's take some food into the hospitals for the nursing staff. We want to thank them. We want to do those things. You know, it's heartwarming to a great degree to look at, you know, manufacturing companies or tech companies like Jeremy's to say, we need to stand up a little bit and help. And there were a lot that actually did. I want to ask you two really quick questions, and then I'll let you all go. Let's start with Kristen. What do you know today that you wish you had known in March of 2020?
Where the price of Bitcoin was going. Without question.
I think everybody on this call could absolutely agree with that. Yeah, geez, darn it.
Yeah.
Don't remind me.
Didn't know that. I didn't know that.
Jody.
Yeah, that's a tough question. I think I was blissfully ignorant at the time relative to where we've come to, but I think ultimately that everything was just going to be okay. It would have been nice to know that, okay, get rid of all the fear and stay on the focus. And obviously, I think all of us probably had lots of sleepless nights over the last little bit, but we're here and that's okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, did we waste some energy and emotion on things that we didn't need to waste energy and emotion on? But maybe we're better for it at having to experience that energy and emotion that we had to deliver. But I agree with you, and I'm sure you agree with Kristen on if you knew what the price of Bitcoin was going to be,
then everything would be really okay.
Jeremy, how about you?
I don't have a witty answer like Kristen. I think, you know, in our boat, it's the thing that would have been really nice for us to have at that time was an understanding of healthcare procurement and how all of that system functioned, because we would have planned a lot better. And actually, I wanted to go back, just double click on something, because, you know, so many of us jumped in and helped with PPE during that crazy rush. And I think one of the unsung heroes really was Patrick Gaskin. Like, I remember Patrick would come twice a week to our shop and pick up prototypes of like the newest face shield that we were making, because we were improving them. I think we went through like 100 iterations or something, but it wasn't just us. Like, if Patrick would go to us, he was going to Bergeron. Probably, I wouldn't be surprised if he was helping Kristen out. Like, there were so many companies that he was, coordinating and helping to make that reality. So
Yeah.
that was a pretty cool effort by him and amazing leadership.
Yeah, he's a phenomenal individual, but a great leader as well. Last question: what have you learned about yourself as a leader over the last 2 years? Jeremy.
I don't like to say no to things. Yeah, that's hard to say, really.
Do you think you're a better leader now than you were before?
For sure. Yeah. I mean, I didn't have an opportunity at this scale, right? I mean, going from 10 people to the growth that we've been through, and having the opportunity to have a voice in the community, it's been a very fundamental change for me. So it's been a lot of learning. I still have a lot to learn. But yeah, it's been an experience.
Jody, how about you?
Yeah, I think over the last the 2 years, I mean, the biggest thing for me was we kind of proved out the things that we thought were correct. So we had a mission, vision, values that we've always thought were really important. And we used that as a filter to make every decision. We stayed to it even when it was really, really hard. But we said we have to keep focused on the long term. And I think overall, it did help get focused on the things. I think it helped figure out what was really important, put our people first. We're in an industry where people are everything, and waking up every day and saying, okay, how do we help the people out? It kind of proved out all of those things for us, and it justified them. And the number of leaders that emerged throughout the entire company and the team, unbelievable, tremendous.
Yeah, Kristen.
I think I learned more about myself as a leader and about being a leader through my involvement at food bank, at the Cambridge Food Bank. I was the board chair in March 2020, and we were actually going through a leadership change at that point at the food bank. So I think I learned about myself as a leader was that I can get through the hard times, and I kind of have the grit for it, but also I learned a lot about myself and learning to relate to other people and developing that skill. And I feel so blessed to have had that opportunity. We kind of coined the phrase to see challenges as opportunities. And we definitely learned that at the food bank then, and just the team there is unbelievable. And to be a part of that was just such an opportunity for me. And I'm so grateful for it.
Yeah, I want to tell you, most people, given the challenges that were there, maybe looked at it and said, why am I the leader? I think you folks, certainly in your organizations, didn't take that attitude. You maybe deep down inside, you won't admit it, but you were maybe grateful that you were the ones that had the opportunity to lead. And I think, what you did was not only lead your organizations, you led your community, because I know Jody opened his heart and mind and advice to small hospitality restaurants when they didn't know how to handle what they were going to do. And Jody, there's a lot of fans of Jody Palubiski out there in the charcoal group for what you did through the pandemic, not just your employees and your staff, who you took care of as best as you possibly could. And then Jeremy, your leadership at it's absolutely remarkable when you think, the premier came out with the announcement on the 17th, and by the 20th, you had a brand new operation up and running, doing things to help to actually mitigate some of the issues that the healthcare industry was having at the time. And Kristen, I know your passion. We're friends as well as work together on the board, but I know your passion for community and leadership in that matter, and how it's so important to you to be a valuable part of the community, not just take from the community through business, but to actually contribute back. And I think that's kind of the theme with all three of you. The reason why you folks are my star entrepreneurs and leaders throughout the pandemic is because not as much about what you did for your own organizations as what you did for the community in balance. You came on and shared stories on our radio show to tell people to keep their chin up. We've got this. We can work together and get through this. So I just want to say a deep-heated thank you from the Cambridge Chamber of Commerce, our members, but the entire region of Waterloo for your leadership throughout this. And don't go anywhere. because we're not quite done and we need your leadership carrying on. So Jeremy, Jody, Kristen, thanks very much for joining us this morning.
Thanks so
Thank
much,
you.
Greg, for having us and for the kind words. Very appreciated.
Oh, wonderful. And then we're going to have lunch soon, all four of us. We'll just
Love
have a
it.
great lunch and share some more stories, but thank you very much.
Great
Ladies
job,
and
Greg.
gentlemen, for you out there, don't forget our upcoming programs are always available. Thanks for joining us today. Go online at cambridgechamber.com. We've got some virtual events coming up, but we've got some live events coming up too. So everybody's excited about that. The one you want to look for is the candidates forums. We're going to keep them remote because it's just easier for us to do that on a virtual platform. So thank you very much. Have a great day. Be productive, but be a leader.